As we go into issue 5, the Justice Society are of course deeply confused about what the hell just happened, especially since Earth 2 feels completely artificial. There are buildings and stuff everywhere, very few people, and all the amounts of minerals and whatnot are in perfect balance. Lois of Earth 2 does seem a bit re-energized by being there. Meanwhile, Booster Gold arrives with Jaime at the Batcave, revealing that he's the new Blue Beetle. He says he has historical records of a team that Batman put together to try to find the Brother Eye satellite, but history says he'll fail. And then, in 35 years, Brother Eye starts randomly assimilating people and turning them into robotic spider zombies.
Okay, now I know you're just making all this stuff up.
The satellite is cloaked, but the technology of the Blue Beetle scarab will let them find it. Meanwhile, Lex goes to Connor, who's in a healing tank thingy, in his underwear so he can absorb all the healing juices better, and is mad about what Prime did to him. During his battle with Alex, a shard of the computer crystal technology got sent into Lex's neck and has grown between issues, and he thinks that Connor can use it to track them, so he leaves it behind while he goes and does something else, I don't know. Maybe being defeated by his alternate universe son, who still has hair, and a Superman at his beck and call took him down a peg. Back to Earth 2. The artwork for the Earth 2 scenes are done by Jerry Ordway, and for the most part it's good, but unfortunately his smiling Lois is a little creepy. Lois suddenly collapses and says her farewell to Clark, happy for all the time they've had together. Supes can't accept it, refusing to admit it'll end like this, but of course she dies as she tells him it's not going to end. The scream of the Earth 2 Superman is so powerful that even the Earth 1 Superman is able to hear it from across space, and he flies off to investigate. In Boston, Wonder Woman stops some looters, but people suddenly start yelling that she's a hypocrite and not one of them, and ugh, so forced. As the people run off in fear of her, we have an unexpected arrival. The Force Ghost of the Earth 2 Wonder Woman. And for some reason, the trade took away her glowiness. Whatever. She got blasted by the Anti-Monitor in Crisis on Infinite Earths, but the gods saw fit to ensure she would forever have a place among them, so I guess she's just been hanging out in Olympus since then. The Earth 1 Superman arrives on Earth 2 and finds his counterpart cradling the dead Lois and asks what the hell is going on, but the Earth 2 Supes thinks that this is his fault, that he killed Lois by bringing his corruption with him. And thus he does his homage to Action Comics #1 by smashing a green car on Earth 1 Supes. So I guess in this version, dead Lois is the guy who's always really surprised by it. While the two fight, Alex Luthor continues to observe things and remarks that he'll miss Lois, but she was never going to survive. Yeah, if you hadn't guessed, it wasn't some corruption that killed her. She was really, really old and died of natural causes. It happens. Unfortunately, this is also where Alex has gone completely evil, as the Psycho Pirate remarks that he doesn't sense much sorrow from him despite his claims. He also doesn't give a crap about Superboy-Prime's disappearance either. Basically, he's just Lex Luthor with hair now. Back to the Wonder Women, Earth 2 Wendy recaps her own history and flies her over to Earth 2 to help out Superman. Earth 1 Diana thinks she's failed her mission, but her counterpart says that's not the problem. You've been a princess, a goddess, an ambassador, and a warrior, but the one thing you haven't been for a very long time is human.
I'm going to go ahead and do this just as slowly as possible so you don't misunderstand.
No. Jeff Johns does not get Wonder Woman. Or at the very least, he did a lot better with her later, but Infinite Crisis is really the tipping point of him not getting the character at all. She's not human. She can't relate to humans. She's some kind of mystical clay goddess person who's not a person and tries too hard to be perfect. Blah! As a reminder, canonically, Wonder Woman has lost her powers multiple times, worked at a fast food joint and did not think the work was beneath her, served as a political ambassador, wrote a popular book, frickin' blinded herself to defeat the previously mentioned Medusa, then went through Hades, not to recover her eyesight, but to restore a child who had been turned to stone by that Medusa. The idea that she can't relate to people assumes that Wonder Woman has not undergone any character development since she first left Themyscira. And what the hell does relating to people have to do with her murdering Maxwell Lord? Given what happened in that situation, I'm willing to bet that quite a few normal people would have snapped Lord's neck just as quickly as she did. Probably kicked him in the balls a few times for fun first. If it was just the murder, that'd be fine, a controversial action, but the story keeps harping on her not being human thing, as if this is a fundamental flaw of the character or something, and it's utter bullcrap! To be human is to care for people, to help people, to love people. And the only person who could do that better than Wonder Woman is Superman. But they wouldn't compare because being a good person is not a competition! But whatever. Wendy arrives and puts a stop to the fight, which has already leveled half of Earth 2's metropolis. Man, I bet if there were any people around, they'd mention how these two Supermen saved them. The Earth 2 Superman berates the two over their dark actions. The mind wipe, the satellite, the murders. And worst of all, you, Superman, could have stopped this before it started! You should have! How? Like, we're still on this point? How would he have stopped them from doing something he didn't know about? It's not a matter of leading by example, because he was already himself, already being Superman and inspiring and crap. Anyway, he screams that he had the potential to make his Earth a perfect world, and that's why he had to recreate Earth 2. However, the Earth 1 Supes points out the flaw in this logic. If you're from this Earth, it can't be perfect, because a perfect Earth doesn't need a Superman. So really, instead of Infinite Crisis, they should have called this book, Turns Out I'm the Asshole. Alex explains that his plan is to recreate the multiverse so that he can sift through thousands upon thousands of worlds, mixing and matching components until he finds a perfect Earth. When you get right down to it, Alex is basically a cosmic bartender trying to mix drinks for the perfect cocktail. And at the universe's core, Firestorm reappears from his tie-in books, and Red Tornado says to follow them. Kyle Rayner has an idea. Oh man, I can't wait to see what Kyle Rayner's plan is. Man, this stuff in space is like the best part of the whole comic. The Psycho Pirate asks why Alex played along with Superman's Earth 2 idea for so long, and he says that he needed him alive. For some reason he doesn't understand, everything comes from Superman. Unless you ask certain DC executives, then they'll say everything comes from Batman. And so Alex splits up the universes again, creating this cool image of multiple repeating Supermen. It just makes everything go completely nuts. Heroes shifting around to different worlds, Earths disappearing, reappearing, and exploding in the sky. Disasters continuing over on Earth 1. And all through it, Nightwing trying to call all the heroes to Titan's Tower unsuccessfully. Nobody's coming, except for Connor, who's finished healing up. The two compare notes, including how they can use the crystal to track the ones responsible for all this. Unfortunately, issue 5 ends with things going from bad to worse. Bart Allen returns from the Speed Force wearing Barry Allen's old costume, and warning everybody that Superboy-Prime is returning, now wearing an armor resembling the Anti-Monitors. A cool, creepy image that was spoiled for most people because of a toy announcement of him looking like that. Good job. Issue 6 begins with Batman's team exposing the Brother Eye satellite, who unleashes Omax on them. On Earth 2, the three heroes realize they need to stop Alex. The multiverse was unstable, and frankly, it's not going to be improved by having thousands of Earths occupying the same general vicinity. As such, they need to get back to Earth 1, assuming they can find it. Okay, so I don't remember where I parked. Are you happy now? We see a montage of various Earths. There's one where Batman, Superman, and their respective kids take on the Joker's and Riddler's kids, and one with a kind of weird World War II aesthetic, and Alex smashes them together. Somehow, this results in an Aztec-themed Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. Well, yeah, World War II plus Super Kids equals Aztecs. That's just hard science right there. Nightwing and Connor arrive in the Arctic, naturally outmanned and outgunned by all the Omax floating overhead. But fortunately, Wonder Girl arrives to help too. Nightwing's plan is to try to free the heroes connected to the tower. That way, they'll have some added help. Batman's team, in the meantime, breaches Brother Eye's defenses and starts making their way deeper into the satellite to try to disable it. Back in the center of the universe, Donna realizes what her vision meant. Superman and Wonder Woman are going to die, and thus the few seconds will make the difference is now. So thank God we have Kyle Rayner's plan. Everybody follow Kyle, and maybe they can focus their power together to hurt the giant hands doing whatever it is they're doing.
You magnificent bastard, I read your book!
Alex starts to fuse Earth 3 and Earth 2 together, resulting in this Junji Ito-esque horror panel, but then Kyle's plan comes to fruition. Shoot Alex Luthor's finger off! Kyle Rayner's plan is still being taught at military academies today. We salute you, dude. The merging is stopped and Nightwing manages to kick Alex away from his pedestal, giving Connor and Wonder Girl time to free the others. Black Adam kills the Psycho Pirate in a needlessly gratuitous fashion, which I will not show. Well, thank God the Psycho Pirate retained his memory of the original Crisis so it could all lead up to this moment. And hey, while she doesn't do anything of note, at least Lady Quark had more of a reason to be in this story than the original Crisis. Unfortunately, Superboy-Prime reappears and backhands Black Adam away. Alex wonders what the deal is with the armor. I designed this after the anti-monitor's harness on the tower. It's an energy collector that feeds me yellow sunlight. Being a teenager who spent most of the last few years of his life in a big glass prison thing, naturally I know how to make something like that. Apparently in the Speed Force, they were in some kind of other dimension or something, and they kept Superboy-Prime under a red sun for a while, hence the need for the solar collector. And that's one of the biggest disappointments. The Anti-Monitor's armor is just a big solar panel. What's the point of calling back to it if it doesn't mean anything? Anyway, Prime tells Alex his search for the perfect Earth is over. They're gonna make Earth Prime the perfect Earth, and, well, Alex is not exactly in a position to disagree. Prime deals with fighting the other heroes. Nightwing? Come on now! You actually think you can fight me? All those Titans did too! Those stupid Titans! I'm gonna tell you a secret. I wasn't even trying last time. Well, so much for Superboy-Prime, tragic figure. Time for Super Bastard Podunk. Batman's team is finally able to disable Brother Eye, with Batman himself getting rescued by Hal Jordan. He asks to go to the Arctic, since Brother Eye informed him of the battle going on there. While in that battle, Connor tackles Prime right into the tower, destroying it in the process. The destruction of the tower recombines everything back into one Earth. As I've said before, Infinite Crisis does not resolve in a reboot, but an altered timeline, as we see in this montage of panels where we see minor bits of DC history being altered, like the killer of Batman's parents being caught, Superman acting as Superboy in Smallville as a teenager, that sort of thing. More importantly though, Connor sadly has been mortally wounded in the battle, and he says his farewell to Wonder Girl, ending issue 6. You did it, Connor. You saved the Earth. You saved everyone. I know, Cass. Isn't it cool? Supergirl's epitaph in the original Crisis was an excerpt from Robert G. Ingersoll's Declaration of the Free. Connor Kent's was, isn't it cool? Can't help but feel that it doesn't have quite the same punch. And thus we come to the final issue. The Trinity blame themselves for all this, Batman promising that they will never let this happen again. They need to learn from all this to be better. Even the Earth 2 Superman is contemplating how much he screwed up Royal, but unfortunately there's no time to grieve. Remember that prison break the Society planned? Yeah, it just happened, unleashing hundreds of regular prisoners and meta-human villains into Metropolis. The idea being that if Superman's city falls, the rest will follow. And here's a big one for the "oh god, we have to fix this in the trade" bit. The final issue of Infinite Crisis was late. So much so that they decided to print the unfinished 2-page spread here and just add a big red filter to the pencil sketches in the background. Really what it says to me is that the Take On Me video existed in a much darker and larger universe. The battle lasts for quite a bit, heroes and villains alike getting killed, particularly thanks to Superboy-Prime, who of course survived. Alex Luthor in the last 5 minutes apparently came up with a whole new plan. If they can't use the tower to make a new Earth, they'll just take it over and make it perfect. Oh yeah, take over the world with an army of other would-be world conquerors, murderers, and mad scientists. Plan B to make the world perfect sounds like a real winner. Along with everybody else who's unleashed, Doomsday also makes an appearance. Fortunately, in a truly badass moment, both Supermen show up and kick the crap out of Doomsday. The heroes soon turn the tide, and the Earth 2 Superman confronts Alex, demanding to know why he would use them, let Lois die like she did, despite being like a mother to him and Superboy-Prime. Because I am like my father was, the only hero in a world full of villains. You have killed countless innocent people, manipulated your friends and loved ones, shown no regard for the well-being of others, are happy to destroy entire worlds to fulfill your goals, and have now decided that you're gonna use an army of supervillains to conquer Earth!
Does that sound like a hero?
Well, when you put it like that, not really, but,
Then what the hell, man? What the actual hell?
Prime is attacked by Bart Allen, but he's so far gone now that he's decided that if he can't have his world back, he'll just clear the board. I'll fly right through Oa, right through the planet at light speed. There'll be a new Big Bang. Everything will restart, and I'll be the only one left again.
There is logic in what he says.
Yeah, not sure how the hell that works, but whatever. The heroes try to pursue, but he's going too fast to catch up. There's a page added for the trade to expand on a fight with the Bat family versus Deathstroke. It's good for pacing, but what concerns us now is that Nightwing gets blasted by Alex Luthor, and some supervillains crashing nearby send everybody flying. While Prime manages to outrun the others, he runs right into the Green Lantern Corps, warned by Hal Jordan of his approach. They manage to slow Prime down with a 300-mile thick wall of construct energy that allows everyone to catch up, and they have a plan. The two Supermen tackle Prime and fly off with him while Alex confronts Batman in the rubble. Another page added to show more fighting in Metropolis, as well as confirmation that Nightwing is going to be okay. Yeah, in the original printed version, there was a lot of confusion and belief that Nightwing was dead, not helped by a panel of him in a puddle of his own blood. Unfortunately, it makes what happens next have a bit less of an impact. Anyway, Alex. We're not so different, Bruce. Being the only hero in this world means that it makes perfect sense for me to have the cliched villain speech about being the same as the hero. Batman knocks Alex down after his speech and grabs one of Deathstroke's guns, putting it right up to Alex's head, and the trade removes the sound effect of the gun's movement because people thought Batman had pulled the trigger on an empty gun. So yeah, with Nightwing now confirmed to be fine, Batman's sudden desire to kill Alex for believing that Nightwing is dead doesn't have the same power it had originally. But hey, Wendy shows up and throws down her sword, telling him that it's not worth it to kill like this. Alex, being a sore loser, says this doesn't change anything, but then more rubble falls down on top of him. Back in space, we see where the two are taking Prime, to where Krypton exploded. While the kryptonite in the area won't affect him, just as it didn't to the Earth 2 Superman, what does have an effect is Krypton's red sun, which strips all three of them of their powers when they fly right through it. They crash on Mogo, the living planet Green Lantern, but I guess Prime managed to retain enough solar energy thanks to his armor to still have some heat vision left in him to attack Superman. However, it quickly fades and we lead into another questionable moment. The Earth 2 Superman and Prime fight, but Prime gets the better of him and just starts beating him to death, his hands coated in blood. He even tries to strangle the Earth 1 Superman and proclaims that he's going to be Superman. Supes rips the S-shield from his chest. You'll never be Superman, because you have no idea what it means to be Superman. Superman! Beating up a homicidal teenager! He knocks Prime out and collapses himself thanks to some nearby kryptonite that had come along for the ride. Fortunately, Power Girl and the Green Lantern Corps arrived to get rid of the kryptonite. Thanks for the assistance, Mogo.
I am sorry to hear of our losses, Green Lantern 2814.1.
In retrospect, I probably could have done something to stop Prime from killing the old Superman, but frankly, it's been a really long episode and I'm really tired. The Earth 2 Superman dies in Power Girl's arms, declaring that he understands what Lois meant now, that it's never going to end for them. And so, much like the end of Crisis on Infinite Earths, we see the aftermath of all this. People working on reconstructing Metropolis, many heroes are missing, but hey, Kyle Rayner and Donna Troy come back. What an exciting and fulfilling subplot that was. Kyle Rayner, you are a tactical genius! The dead are buried, and the other dead become the Spectre. And then relics from the Tangent universe wash up on a shore. That's a story for another day. In a callback to the original Crisis ending, Bart Allen refuses to become the new Flash, saying that Jay Garrick is now the fastest man alive. Alex is revealed to have survived and plans to start his work again. Unfortunately for him, he walks into an alley and hears laughter. The Joker shows up and sprays his face with acid and electrocutes him. He crawls away and begs whoever is near him for help, right at the feet of Lex Luthor. You made a lot of mistakes. You underestimated Superman, Superboy, me, but the biggest one? You didn't let the Joker play. and Alex is shot dead by the Joker.
Now who's stupid? Aw, damn it, Joker, you killed him before I could pour Granny's peach tea on him.
In the aftermath of what happened, Clark's Superman powers still haven't returned. Bruce decides to retrace the steps he took as Batman, but with Tim and Dick coming along with him.
What's in your future, Diana?
I think it's time to find out who Diana is.
She's the same person as Wonder Woman! Screw you!
Clark meets up with Lois, and they discuss how, until the three of them are back to action, things will be in good hands, showing off a 2-page spread of superheroes. They change it for the trade into a different spread, but only so they can add a crap ton more heroes. And so, Infinite Crisis ends with the fate of Superboy-Prime, locked away in a cell near a red sun, watched at all times by 50 Green Lanterns. He carves an S shield into his own chest, and promises that he'll get out again. Infinite Crisis is a flawed story, one I will get into in a minute, but I can't say that it's bad, and I still love it despite those flaws. Like with Blackest Night, Jeff Johns knows how to deliver an epic popcorn flick of a comic. As a sequel to Crisis on Infinite Earths, it definitely has the kind of broad scope necessary for an event, but focuses more on character development than the original story did, trying to tell a tale about the nature of heroism and letting go of the past. The artwork is spectacular, though get the trade instead of the individual issues because of the expanded material and completed artwork. And there are several instantly iconic moments scattered throughout, with great dialogue and huge epic fight scenes. But yes, there are those flaws. I've discussed most of them at length throughout this review. The plot holes, the superfluous nature of Donna Troy's group and Kyle Rayner's plan, and the over-the-top violence at times really detracts from what should be a hopeful note to begin the next era of the DC Universe. That part is made even worse by the ending page of Prime's promise to escape. If this story was meant to show the heroic spirit of the DC Universe was still strong, especially with that 2-page spread of the heroes, then Superboy-Prime should have either 1. realized he was wrong, or 2. been killed, either in an heroic sacrifice or still rejecting the newer world. Him surviving and getting the final word in the story is wrong, especially after having killed the Earth 2 Superman. Hell, the way the Earth 2 Superman died is very questionable. Him dying is not necessarily a problem, but the way he dies, this is the original Superman, remember, is iffy. In the original Crisis, he sacrificed everything, but in the end was rewarded with a seeming heaven for it, getting to spend the rest of his life with the woman he loved. One could argue the final panels with him in the sky with Lois are the same deal, but it doesn't feel like it because we just saw him brutally beaten to death, his killer promising that he'd get out again to do more harm. It doesn't feel like justice has been done. And sure, from the heroic standpoint, Prime should not be killed by the heroes. The entire point is to reject his view of them as no better than killers. But from a narrative standpoint, the story seems to almost vindicate him by leaving him alive and giving him the final word. While it's not as well formed as I would have liked, I do appreciate on this latest read of the story that the Trinity do seem to understand that they did wrong things, although Superman still didn't really do anything wrong. In the end, their actions against Prime and Alex showed that they are still heroes and will commit to living up to that ideal, regardless of what people like Alexander Luthor or Superboy-Prime think.
We're going to be damned. Let's be damned for what we really are.
So yeah, this ended up being bigger than I expected it to be, but let's talk a bit about what happened next in the aftermath of this event. And there was a lot, more than I can really get into. Superboy-Prime, of course, would eventually escape with the help of the Sinestro Corps, leading into that crossover storyline and his eventual arrival in Countdown, where he became even more of a joke. The Teen Titans would go through a lot of hardship after these losses, taking quite a while for the team to really recover. On that note of recovery, it was decided as a marketing ploy to jump all DC books ahead 1 year, with a big 1 year later sign and everything, to try to get people to recover from the massive event as quickly as possible. The tale of what happened in that intervening year was told in 52, a weekly series told in real time that showed the stories of various characters for good and for ill. Connor Kent would eventually be brought back to life a few years later thanks to a tie-in to Final Crisis, and we'll be getting into that later this month. Alex Luthor would remain dead, briefly appearing in a Blackest Night tie-in, but otherwise an attempt at resurrecting him was made in a later Justice League storyline. He would be briefly resurrected, but only to try to atone for his sins. There's a lot that I could cover about 52, but 52 is a fantastic story that I highly recommend you check out sometime. And while this was a direct sequel to the original Crisis, Final Crisis is not a sequel to this story. But we'll talk about that when we get to it. Next time, however, more on the subject of Infinity. for it's time for the direct sequel to Marvel's Infinity Gauntlet, and the title of the upcoming Marvel film, Infinity War.
Good evening, I'm Danielle Dentari.
And I'm George Reese.
And this is the first segment of our Contest of Champions news coverage, reaching out to the 3 million parallel universes and 2,000 associated subdimensions.
As per usual, we'll be bringing you regular updates about the Contest of Champions, give exclusive interviews of the various contestants, recap the action of the latest bouts, and provide commentary from our panel of experts.
And things got off to an early start today with 2 matches back-to-back. The first match of the 1049th Contest of Champions saw returning contestant and crowd favorite, Pylo. Seen here in its famous victory over Cyborg Galtron Carez in the 1020th contest, has managed to score the first victory of this year over Spherical, Overlord of the Dark Dimension.
While the Overlord has infamously refused to speak to reporters in the past, I was able to briefly sit down with him after the match to share his thoughts about how things went down. There was a moment about halfway into the match where it looked like you had turned the tables on Pylo by absorbing him into your matrix. What happened, Spherical? If you had to do it all over again, what would you have done differently? Any last thoughts on Pylo? So you'd say Pylo has the will of a despot, but not the heart. Well, thank you for your time. I know you have a busy schedule. Hopefully we'll see you again soon, O Destroyer of Dreams.
While Pylo's next match won't be for some time, and the matches have only just begun, the betting boards of Algar have already put Pylo as their assumed champion to win the contest, with good odds for at least reaching the semifinals.
Just 10 minutes before this broadcast, Sorceress and Pyra scored her first victory in the contest over bounty hunter Sharp Tusk.
Utilizing her magics, Empira was able to manipulate her invisible foe into overloading his own cloaking device, knocking him unconscious. Sharp Tusk refused to comment on his defeat, but Empira said to the reporters, "This victory and all to come are for my friend Helena. May the constellations welcome her."
Helena Spruce, a former contestant in 2 other contests and compatriot of Empira from her universe, tragically passed away 2 years ago.
When we return, I'll join Solak the Wise and demon magician Corto Valjean for their thoughts on the magics used in the battle.
But first, a word from our sponsor, Cuba Cola.
The 1049th Contest of Champions, brought to you by Cuba Cola. Feel the theoretical fizz of the hypothetical soda.